Good evening and welcome to the Coon Rapids City Council meeting for Tuesday, September 3rd, 2024. If you could please rise and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Griskoviak.
Here.
Councilmember Ray Rauer.
Here.
Councilmember Novak. Councilmember Geisler.
Here.
Councilmember Armstrong. Councilmember Carlson.
Here.
Mayor Cook.
Here.
2 absent, Novak and Armstrong.
Thank you. All right, well, why don't we adopt this evening's agenda?
Motion to adopt the agenda.
Second.
Motion by Carlson and a second by Ray Rauer to adopt the agenda. Is there any corrections or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And the agenda is adopted. We're looking to approve the minutes from the August 20th meeting.
Mayor, make a motion to approve the minutes of the August 2024 meeting.
Second.
Motion by Griskoviak, second by Geisler. Is there any discussion or corrections? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion carries.
I abstain, Mr. Mayor.
One abstention, Councilmember Carlson. We have 3 items on our consent agenda this evening. The first one is to adopt Resolution 24-87, accepting a CenterPoint Energy Community Safety Grant. The Coon Rapids Fire Department has received a grant totaling $2,500 to be used for firefighter safety. The grant was received from CenterPoint Energy under their 2024 Community Safety Grant Program. The monies may be used to purchase individual thermal imaging cameras. The monies will be used. The cameras aid firefighters in locating possible victims in structure fires, as well as increasing situational awareness of surrounding thermal temperature variations while performing their fire suppression duties. Individual thermal imaging cameras, TIC, have become the standard in the fire service for locating victims and protecting firefighters from extreme thermal flashover temperature variations common in today's structure fires. This grant will allow us to purchase more individual cameras so each firefighter may have one while performing their duties. While the number of structure fires continues to decrease each year, the potential risk to firefighters continues to climb. The purchase of these cameras will assist in reducing their risk during fireground operations. So the item 1 is to adopt Resolution 24-87, accepting the CenterPoint Energy Community Safety Grant for $2,500 to purchase the individual thermal imaging cameras. This next item on our consent agenda is to accept a deed from EDA transferring land to the city. The EDA currently owns 4 parcels in Port Campus Square area that include the Coon Rapids Ice Center, Boulevard Park, and associated public improvements. Because the EDA originally issued the bonds that financed land acquisition and certain improvements to the properties, they have remained under EDA ownership. The bonds have since been paid off, and the city, as the operator of the Ice Center and Park, is better suited to own the properties in the long term. In addition, state law only allows real estate held by an EDA to be exempt from property taxes for a period of 10 years. City-owned property held for a public purpose can remain tax exempt indefinitely. And the EDA adopted a resolution authorizing transfer of the parcels to the city immediately before this council meeting. So we're looking to accept a deed from the Economic Development Authority conveying 4 parcels in the Port Campus Square area. And the third and final item on our consent agenda is to adopt Resolution 24-80, accepting the Victim Services Grant. The Minnesota Department of Public Safety, the DPS, Officer of Justice Programs, OJP, sought proposals from county and city attorney offices to fund a victim witness advocate position. This position provides services to crime victims, ensuring crime victim rights are upheld and increasing victim safety and access to services that meet their needs. The city attorney's office was first awarded the grant in October of 2017 and has maintained it since then. These funds were anticipated in the 2023 city budget and the 2024 proposed city budget. This funding enhances, not replaces, existing services for crime victims by having the victim service staff be in court with an attorney to improve victim contact. Further, the funding helps the city attorney's office meet statutory requirements by enhancing information referrals for victims and providing victims greater assistance and advocacy. The victim service staff is under the supervision of the city attorney. Under the proposal, state and federal funding is available to directly service the needs of crime victims, and this grant was awarded to the city for $70,000 for a one-year period beginning October 2023. The grant was automatically renewed by the OJP in April of 2024 for an additional $70,000 for a second year, extending the grant through September of 2025. Additionally, the Minnesota State Legislature approved additional funding for fiscal year 2025 for current crime victim service grantees. The additional funding of $10,154 has been awarded to the city to be used towards training our current victim witness specialist, obtaining an intern, language and translation apps, and/or service and direct client assistance for victims. So we're looking to adopt Resolution 24-80 to accept the Victim Service Grant from the Minnesota Department of Public Safety, Office of Justice Programs, and authorize execution of the agreement by the mayor and city manager. I didn't know how to distill that down any shorter. It seemed all important.
We're getting a second year of our $80,000, or $70,000 plus, we're getting a potential of another $10,000.
Well, thank you.
And apparently we have to accept that.
Okay. I should have just had you give us a synopsis. All right, that was our complete consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Carlson?
motion to adopt the consent agenda?
Second.
Motion by Carlson and a second by Ray Rauer. Is there any discussion or questions on the consent agenda? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the consent agenda is adopted. Now we have a couple public hearings. The first one is to conduct a public hearing as we consider Resolution 24-85, giving host approval to the issuance of an educational facilities revenue note. Ms. Hanson, do you want to hit the highlights of this one?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council is asked to conduct a public hearing and then give host approval for the issuance of education facility revenue note for the Friends of Northwest Passage High School. They are looking to finance acquisition, renovation, and improvement of an existing building in the city. The city was not able to assist with the issuance since we had already issued almost $8.5 million bond, and that would have put us over our $10 million bank qualified limit, so the city of Champlin has agreed to issue this note. We do have a couple representatives in the audience. If the council has any questions regarding this at all, we have Peter, I don't butcher your name, Razorek. And then they're happy to answer any questions you have.
Very good. And this is not without precedent. We went to Champlin and helped us out another year for something for Epiphany Pines or Epiphany Assisted Living, one of those, I don't recall which. Does anybody have any questions on this? All right. So then, if there's no questions, we will open a public hearing. Is anybody here to address council for the Friends of Northwest Passage High School and their issuance and our issuance of an educational facilities revenue note? Not our issuance, our issuance.
Post approval. So, yeah, City of
Yeah.
Champlin would issue, we're just giving the approval to do so.
Yeah, what she said. Is anybody here for the public hearing on that? One more time, anybody for the public hearing on that? We'll close the public hearing and look for a
Mr.
motion
Mayor?
from Councilmember Geisler.
I'll make a motion to adopt Resolution 24-85, giving host approval to the issuance of a conduit education facilities revenue note.
Second?
Motion by Geisler and a second by Carlson. Is there any discussion on this?
Mr. Mayor, I just want to say thank you to the city of Champlin, and that I think, the northern cities, we do a lot of cooperation, and this is just another way that we work together to help each other out. And thank you to staff for reaching out and making sure that we can make this happen for them.
All right.
And Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember
And just,
Kraskowiak.
my understanding, no financial obligation here for the city of Champlin or the city of Coon Rapids, but in exchange, what we get is, I was just driving by that property on Robertson Drive just a couple weeks ago, and it does look like it's in need of some renovations, so I'm excited to see that some money's going into it, getting it renovated, getting it back up to speed, and again, appreciative of the city of Coon Rapids and Champlin on this one.
All right. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion carries. Thank you. Item 6 is to hold an assessment hearing and consider resolutions 24-81, 24-82, 24-83, and 24-84, approving the miscellaneous 2024-2 assessment levy. Ms. Hanson again.
Thank you. Following the assessment hearing, the council is asked to adopt resolutions for unopposed miscellaneous special assessments. As of 4:30 this evening, the amount was at $147,000.
All right. Any other questions before we open it up? All right. Then we will open the assessment hearing. Is there anybody here to address council over the assessments here? Mr. Brody, am I doing something wrong?
Your Honor, I would just point out that this is any person's last opportunity if they want to object to their assessment. So if this would be the opportunity, just want to make sure that people are aware of that.
Oh, all right, very good. So this is their last opportunity to object to these assessments. And the hearing continues to be open. Is there anybody here for the assessment hearing? All right, we are going to close that and consider resolutions.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Rayrauer,
I make a motion to adopt Resolution 24-81, adopting 2024 Sub-2 miscellaneous special assessments unopposed 1 year. Can these be together? And adopt Resolution 24-82, adopting 2024 Sub-2 miscellaneous special assessments unopposed 3 year. And adopt Resolution 24-83, adopting 2024 Sub-2 miscellaneous special assessments unopposed 5 year. And adopt Resolution 24-84, adopting 2024 Sub-2 miscellaneous special assessments unopposed 10 year.
Second?
motion by Rayrauer and a second by Geisler. Is there discussion on this?
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Geisler?
I think it's just, maybe just to let the public know of, the 1 year, the 3 year, 5 year, 10 year. Those terms are dictated based on the amount of the assessment. So amounts up to $1,000 are payable in 1 year, up to $5,000 are payable in 3 years, up to $20,000 are 5 years, and anything over $20,000 is a 10-year. So that's just why there are 4 different motions.
Very good. And that total amount of the miscellaneous assessments as of tonight is $147,000. Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And that motion carries. And we're up to item 7, and it looks like we've got a Mr. Brown Dog and Pony Show over there.
Yes, good evening. So yes, we have a site plan application. Family Promise of Anoka County is proposing an 8-unit multifamily building on some property in the Port Evergreen district. So this is just off of 94th Avenue, block off of Coon Rapids Boulevard. The site currently just under 1.5 acres, has a single family house on it. That house would be retained as part of this proposal. Family Promise, I'll note too, also owns an office building where it operates its office on Coon Rapids Boulevard, just across 94th Avenue there. You had seen a similar project in a work session just about a year ago. There have been some modifications to the proposal since then, but quite a similar proposal. The zoning is the Port Evergreen zoning district, which allows a variety of both commercial and residential uses. Comprehensive plan designation as commercial mixed use. The site plan shown on the screen here, again, for an 8-unit residential building. The existing single-family house would be integrated into the project, so a total of 9 units. The building would be oriented toward 94th Avenue. Driveway and parking area, the proposal would include 13 parking spaces. We'll talk a little bit more about parking in a moment. But the site plan also includes a children's play area, a pet area, also an infiltration basin at the southeast corner of the site. In terms of building materials, the proposal meets all of the requirements of the Port District and the River Rapids Overlay District, so it would be primarily fiber cement, siding, brick along the first floor. There are a total of 3 2-bedroom units proposed, so our zoning code minimum size for a 2-bedroom unit or a 2-bedroom unit is 700 square feet. These units are proposed to be 850 square feet. Proposal also includes a total of 5 efficiency units at 528 square feet each. The code has a 500 square foot minimum for those units. You can see here the first floor plan, so it includes a community room, kitchen, playroom, a couple units on the first floor, laundry on the first floor, and then the second floor, couple more 2-bedroom units, and then 4 more efficiency units. There's the front and rear elevation, again, a combination of fiber cement, board and batten siding, lap siding, and brick. Here are the north and south elevations. So again, the building elevations do meet all of the code requirements in terms of building materials, breaking up longer facades, windows, brick and stones, and the like. The one area where the applicant is requesting flexibility is on parking. So right now our code requires 2.25 space per unit, one of which needs to be enclosed. This project is geared toward families coming out of homelessness who are unlikely to own 2 or 3 vehicles. So the applicant is proposing that 13 space surface lot on the site. As I mentioned, they also own the office building that's across 94th Avenue, which has a total of 43 spaces on it. So they would be able to meet the 2.25 spaces per unit if some spaces in that existing office building lot are dedicated toward this project. So we are recommending a condition of approval that a shared parking agreement is in place between the 2 parcels so that this project has use of those parcels. There wouldn't be any enclosed parking spaces, of course, but there would be more than enough parking spaces available on that site. So that existing office building would require 10 spaces per the code, so there would be 33 additional spaces that would be available for this new project.
So, Mr. Brown, is there like a deed restriction that goes on that property so that it can't be sold separate from this then, or how does that work?
That's what we're proposing, that a shared parking agreement of some sort that staff would review to ensure that it, has appropriate language to really to make clear that those parking spaces are, to be used for this project. And here's a drawing showing those parking spaces. One of the other conditions we're recommending is that existing office building parking lot is striped. Right now, it's kind of a big informal parking area, so we are asking that it is striped, and it's just clear which spaces are dedicated toward to which use. So again, that parking is the one flexibility request for the enclosed parking and the off-site parking, since it is across the street. And our recommendation is approval with 12 conditions. The Planning Commission considered this site plan application at its August meeting. No one spoke at the public hearing, was unanimous. And then we have the flexibility request for dimensional flexibility for parking, making those 3 findings. We do have representatives of the applicant here to answer any questions. I'm certainly available to answer questions as well.
Mr. Brown, would you go back to the site plan or the image with the building and the parking? Is there a fence required behind that? I'm just, because you've got all those parking places going up against the back of those residential properties. So that's, I mean, obviously they got all these headlights in their backyard.
Yeah, that's one of the other conditions I'll mention. Everything else really met the landscape standards. We do have a condition in there that they add a 3-foot berm along that east property line so that the parking lot is screened from those other residential properties.
Okay. A 3-foot berm.
Or hedge,
Okay. Or hedge?
yeah. Item 10.
Instead of a 6-foot fence?
I mean, that is certainly up to you as to what constitutes the screening. That is our recommendation. If you have a different preference, that condition can certainly be modified.
Yeah, I guess all of a sudden it's kind of introducing headlights into the backyards of all those folks, and I was just kind of want to make sure that we're not messing with them too much. All right. Questions of Mr. Brown?
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Griscoviac?
Oh, I'm not sure if this is a question for Mr. Brown or is this a question for all of us, but,
Okay.
I mean, Family Promise, obviously a great organization. We all know that. I've never seen an agreement with the parking that gives proof of parking on the other side of a city street. Do we have any precedent about that? Do we have any concerns with crosswalks or anything of that nature?
We do. It is a little unusual, and our zoning code does allow for parking on an adjacent property under certain conditions. This is a little bit unusual in that it is across the street. We have talked with our engineering staff about this, and they really feel that the traffic volumes on 94th Avenue are so low that there isn't
Okay.
really a need to stripe a crosswalk or anything. So we're not overly concerned at the staff level about that.
Okay.
You're
I think-
lost, or you're going to Family Promise if you're on 94th Avenue.
Yeah.
it's-
The other question, if I might, so again, Family Promise, great organization, and it makes sense that people are transitioning from homelessness into a facility like this for a year that likely don't have 2 cars. Hopefully they have one. We don't have any enclosed parking on this, but what if Family Promise stepped away from this project and that becomes just a regular apartment building? Then are they going to become non-conforming with the parking, and would that be addressed at a separate time, or how would that work?
Yeah, it wouldn't become non-conforming necessarily. However, if that was a concern of the council, there could be a way of attaching a condition to the parking flexibility, just making it clear that that flexibility was granted for the existing user, and if that user goes away, they have to bring the parking into compliance or provide parking on site. So I think there would be a way to attach a condition to the flexibility to address some of those issues if that was a concern.
Okay, and the only reason I bring it up is if it does change hands, then not only is there no covered parking, but there's really a limited number of parking spaces there, so those cars would eventually just be on 94th, and we don't really want that.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Carlson?
Yeah, I'm a huge supporter of Family Promise and huge supporter of this project. And my only concerns with the whole thing is what happens if you're gone? That's all. So I agree with Councilmember Skroviak, and I think that's a good thought. There's some condition that could be in there where if Family Promise does step out of that property, if it's sold as an apartment building, just a regular apartment building, just to make sure we have those requirements met somehow.
Is that, Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Griscoviac?
is that pretty straightforward? If we,
Your Honor, I guess I have a question for Mr. Brown, if I may, too.
Mr. Brody, go ahead.
I presume that, and we haven't discussed what we consider cross-access sort of agreements and cross-parking agreements on a semi-regular basis with properties that are adjacent to one another. The only difference here is this is just across the street. Are we presuming that this is sort of gonna run with the land, so to speak, so that the parking itself will always be there for both properties? The only issue that would remain then would be the covered parking because that wouldn't be necessarily addressed. But the parking should remain even if Family Promise leaves either. They decide to leave their office building, that property would be subject to the allowing parking from across the street and vice versa. If they sell off the apartment piece, then they should still, whoever buys it still should have access, in my mind, to the parking that's across the street. So they would always meet the minimum parking that we've required. The question would be is, how does council feel then? Well, it's fine if the new owner doesn't have covered parking, because we didn't have it before, but at least we know that they have the parking that we required for the first project. So that's what I'm envisioning. And so the question being open is, how does council feel if this somehow transfers ownership to just a sort of a regular apartment and there's no covered parking?
Mr. Murray, how would that, if they, all right. So if that parking is assigned or tied to that apartment building, but then they wanted to sell the parcel on Coon Rapids Boulevard, and the purchaser of that and the owner of the building said, yeah, we don't care, we don't need that parking anymore, and so they signed off on that deed. I mean, we don't have any ability to protect that restrictive covenant at that point, do we? Because couldn't they just sort
Sure,
of just?
because it's basically between those two
Yeah,
parties.
it's between those two owners then.
Correct. Yeah, you're likely right. I mean, we're speculating a lot. I was looking at it from the positive that the person across the street would want that parking, but you're right, potentially they could come to an agreement. Then at that point, the property probably isn't in compliance. Whatever lost the parking wouldn't be in compliance at that point because it needed 20 spots or whatever we agreed to. And so, I don't know what enforcement action we could take at that point. That's a good question.
Okay.
I think what our hope is to put this give the city the most protection it can and give council the most assurances it can. And so I think we're at least doing that from the get-go. There's all kinds of, I'm guessing, different ways it could go down the road.
And I guess I mean, I really like the model of Family Promise. I like what they do. I guess my concern is at some point, all of a sudden, they get an offer where they think of a different model and somebody says, well, then I'll just buy this one from you for $800,000 or $1 million or whatever it is, and that would give them money to start a different type of a project. I guess I'm just, I don't know, I'm always trying to think of the worst case scenario here.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Geisler.
Yeah, for me, the cross-parking easement isn't as big of a concern. I'm sure that we can handle that. The place that I'm concerned is, are we setting a precedent for non-covered parking? And that is something I don't want to set. So, but I agree that it's reasonable here. So is there a way that we can add some sort of language that describes the type of usage that is acceptable for non-covered parking with this current tenant? And then, because if it goes away and is just a general apartment, I don't want to see no covered parking, because then I could have people arguing across the city that they don't need covered parking.
Mr. Mayor? Yeah, just to go on, to continue on your comments, I'm just wondering if, so it sounds like if it were to be another, maybe transitional housing that wasn't Family Promise, but another one, this would still make sense to keep this way. But so could there be a condition where, to assuage the concerns that it could become somebody else's, the condition is that this parking flexibility is only specific to transitional housing, and if it were to, change owners, that now they'd either have to meet the parking requirements or come back for flexibility approval.
I get a little,
I don't
Mayor and council, I get a little concerned. We're looking at it as an apartment building. We're treating it like an apartment building because we don't have sort
Okay.
of boarding houses or shelters. So they've presented a model that's based on running an apartment building. Now the individuals they may bring in may be transitional. At some point, they might not be. But so I think staff has looked at it, and what we've been proposed
Okay.
to by Family Promise is that this is a traditional apartment. Now, who they tend to serve, that's up to them, but it's gonna be run, it's gonna be built like a traditional apartment building. At least that's my understanding. So I get a little worried legally or otherwise that we start sort of parsing it out based on its use when really what we're looking at is an apartment building.
So
That needs some
back-
parking
Or,
flexibilities.
Mr. Mayor, is it,
So then
a
it's,
multi-family that is 10 units or less, we could get, I'm just trying to,
Sure.
Where are we setting that precedent for no covered parking?
So, and I guess that's what I would like to go back to, is that question, are we setting a precedent? Because we've just had however many units over on University go in, and we required fencing all the way around, by the way. I guess I'm wondering about that.
I would say with the flexibility provision, the council does have a lot of latitude as to when it approves that. There are those 3 findings that can be made. So I do think you can tie those to a specific site or situation. So I don't know that it's a huge concern that, if we don't have enclosed parking here, that just means any other apartment proposal that comes in, you're bound to grant flexibility for that. And for one, flexibility is only even an option in the port districts and River Rapids overlay districts. So that's not even something we really can do citywide. So I would say there are some safeguards in place. If you wanted to attach additional conditions or a kind of bolster that motion language to make clear that it is, because of the unique circumstances of the operation of this building, I think that could be a solution.
I would agree with Mr. Brown that flexibility, and it's only in the port and what he indicated. Like I said, I just have a little bit of trouble though if we're sort of tying our conditions to sort of the unique use of the property when it's really just what we're treating it as is an or multifamily unit.
Sure.
And
Mr. Mayor?
concerned about its parking flexibilities.
Okay. Councilmember Ray Rower?
I just want to make sure, I'm pretty sure I know the answer, just want to double check. Anytime that there would be parking flexibility in the Port District, a group would have to come forward and get approval by the council, correct? So we do review them on an individual case-by-case basis, okay. So I'm okay with it the way it is.
So, Mr. Brown, I'm still stuck on the fence thing, because when we did the townhomes right next to Hoover Elementary, didn't we require fencing on those to block headlights from the neighbors? And the townhomes that went in on University, I don't recall the name of that one right by the little church.
little 8-unit.
Yeah.
Didn't they have to put a privacy fence in on both sides?
Yeah, and the landscape standards do offer some different options, whether it's a berm, hedge, fence for screening. There is screening that's required. I would certainly say that, again, if the council prefers a fence or wants a berm and a fence, that is certainly within your purview to modify that condition.
Okay, I'm just posing the question. I don't know where I'm at on it either. It just seems like we normally would have a fence there between an apartment parking lot and the back of
I
single-family
think it's in
homes.
some ways more common to have a fence, just because that could be an easier solution if you're constrained. Landscaping can get pricey.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, Councilmember Ray Rower?
I'm just wondering, on those other projects, were there neighbors that were, opposed to the development and then we added the fence, or was that not really the case?
I
No,
don't remember neighbors.
no, okay.
Councilmember Geisler?
If we could potentially ask the petitioners their opinion on, because to me, if it's a 3-foot berm and hedge, as screening, or a fence, it needs to be screened, and if they're opposed to putting a fence versus the hedge.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Coming up,
Good question.
introduce yourself.
Good question.
I'm Andy Madsen, the project architect with LHB. The only thing that I would say, I think that Family Promise would likely be open to a fence or a hedge. The berm is a little concerning because we have currently a 10-foot setback from the curb to the property line shown, and a berm typically would need a 3-to-1 slope to get up to 3 feet. So we're talking about a setback of about 18 feet instead of 10 feet, so that would really throw off the site plan as it currently sits. So that would be more challenging. That's my only,
So a fence instead of a 3-foot berm is probably more
That seems
likely and
acceptable.
easier and acceptable. So if we modified our bullet 10, instead of saying a 3-foot berm or 3-foot high solid hedge, we would just add a privacy fence for screening headlights.
yeah, that's totally
Okay.
reasonable, yeah.
Great.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Griscoviac?
since we have the petitioner up there, I mean, if we had covered parking along that, we would cover both of those bases. We'd have covered parking and we would have the barrier with the lights and everything like. Is covered parking, some basic covered parking along that edge, except potential?
So, sorry, David Fry, Director for Family Promise, resident at 123rd Avenue in Coon Rapids. We've done some research around with other organizations that have worked with families in similar situation, and the recommendation is to avoid covered parking because it doesn't become parking, it becomes storage.
Storage.
And that's hard for us to move that on when it goes. So for us, we would like to avoid covered parking for some of that reason specifically.
It's good to have that feedback. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So the fence,
Fence,
we're okay?
yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Want me to-
I guess my only challenge is on looking at the snow removal. You know, they'll have to make sure they don't push the snow over in and over the fence, but, okay. I guess I would just like to offer some protection for those residents
Yeah.
behind. I think that's reasonable.
Yeah. So, Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Geisler?
I would make a motion in planning case 24-22 that the city council approve the proposed site plan with the following conditions, and since we made changes, I will read them. 1, all engineering comments be addressed. 2, all sustainability comments be considered. 3, the applicant enter into a site security agreement with the city. 4, all units on site, including the existing single-family home, be connected to city sewer and water utilities. 5, a shared parking agreement be executed between the owners of the subject property and the owners of the Family Promise Office site, PID 25-31-24-43-0044. And number 6, the parking lot on the Family Promise Office site to be used for parking for the apartment project be striped to the standards of City Code, Section 11-1202. 7, a park dedication fee of $12,690, which is $1,410 per unit for 9 units, be paid prior to issuance of building permits. 8, all parking areas are lit to 1-foot candle. 9, a right of entry agreement be established between the city and property owner to provide city access to hydrants located outside of the public right-of-way. 10, a 6-foot privacy fence be provided between the parking area on site and the adjacent single-family residential parcels with a review and approval by staff. And 11, all signage is subject to separate sign permits. And 12, the applicant work with staff to ensure the facade and roof materials are appropriate.
Second.
So we have a motion by Geisler and a second by Rayrauer. We can do the dimensional flexibility in the second motion?
Yes, that would be my recommendation.
Okay. And then the thing on the parking, the shared parking agreement, would that ever be written as like a non-revocable or something?
Well, I would assume that it's going to run with the land, and be recorded on the properties, would be my intention, and that I think gives us the best protection, or the best, nothing is a guarantee, but, and maybe we could amend that, and they've got to provide it that, city approved agreement, so if we amended the motion to include that, I think it's implied in there, but
Okay.
that would be my suggestion.
Okay. And then, Mr. Brown, does that, the way she talked about the fence, that gives you the ability to make sure we get a nice quality fence there?
Yes.
And
Okay.
you can make sure it's in the right space and all that good stuff.
All right, very good. We have a motion and a second. We have further discussion on this.
Mr. Mayor, is this
Councilmember Skoviak?
as amended? Just
As amended.
As amended?
As amended?
Okay.
Motion and a second as amended. Okay. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And the motion carries.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Rayrauer?
For planning case 24-22, I move to approve dimensional flexibility for covered parking, finding that the modifications are necessary to respond to site conditions, result in better integration of uses or additional public amenities, and further the intent of the Port District.
Second?
Motion by Rayrauer and a second by Geisler. Is there additional discussion on this? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion carries. All right. Thank you, gentlemen. It's been a long time coming here.
Good luck with the project.
All right. Item 8 is to consider acceptance of a petition for the establishment of Village Manor Condominium Association Housing Improvement Area. Mr. Brody?
Your Honor, we received a petition from the Village Manor Condominium Association for housing improvement areas, you just indicated. We haven't done one of these in a long time.
No, it's been a while.
2016-ish, so this is the first step in that process. They're a smaller association, I believe 8 units, proposing at some point when we get to it, just to replace their roofs. So this is just the first step to accept the petition and order the public hearing for October 15th. It's about a 5-month process with several council meetings in which we'll establish the housing improvement area, if that's what council wishes to do, and then go through a process to assess those units, the value of the improvements, and at that point, they'll be able to do the work. So we're just asking that you accept the petition tonight and order the public hearing for October 15th.
Okay. And Mr. Brody, we can assume that if any of these are not legitimate, that somebody will bring it up at one of the subsequent meetings, right?
That some of the,
Well, like one of the if any of the signatures were faked or anything like that.
yes, and we've verified at least that they're the property owners that are currently the property owners. And so, yes.
All right, very good.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Griscoviac.
is it typical that the city get involved in a housing association like this?
Used to be.
Okay. Yeah.
It is
'Cause
not-
I just haven't seen one, I guess.
Well, it's been 2016.
2016 was the last time we did one. It's a legislative creation by statute that allows cities to sort of act as the financier of the project. It's usually when associations haven't large enough reserves, which occasionally does happen. So part of the process of this is they'll have to come up with a financial plan to ensure that this doesn't happen again. Although, to be frank, this individual, or this property, or this association was here in like 2003, so it's been about 20 years, and we did allow them at least to proceed with the petition. You're also not obligated by accepting the petition tonight to do anything. This is just the first step in that statutory process, and you'll get a lot more information as we proceed, as will the
We did
property
the
owners.
carriage homes off of Robinson Drive, I think was the last project. Earlier than that, all of the really nice big townhomes off of Tulip Street and Silverado over off of Round Lake Boulevard was done. It's been done a number of times.
Yeah, it just hasn't been recent.
Yeah.
Okay.
Your Honor?
Councilmember Raybauer,
So is this a motion to accept the petition?
Yes,
Okay.
please.
in order of public hearing.
I make a motion to accept the petition requesting the establishment of the Village Manor Condominium Association Housing Improvement Area and order a public hearing for October 15th, 2024 at 7 p.m.
Second.
Motion by Raybauer and a second by Carlson. Is there further discussion on this? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion carries. Item 9 is to consider resolutions ordering preparation of feasibility report and plans for project 25-1 street reconstruction. And Mr. Himmer, anything you want to hit on here?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, Council, we're looking at approximately 4 miles, mostly on the north side of town, adjacent to Main Street, also a smaller section on the border with Andover. It's our typical reconstruction. Mr. Hanson was in a work session with you maybe about a month or so outlining these areas. This is just the first step in that 429 process. Moving forward with that feasibility. It's our typical reconstruction, a little bit of cast iron replacement in there. Mark will come back detailing the scope of that, the estimated cost, the assessments, all of that at a future date. So I'm happy to answer any questions you might have right now.
Very good. Any questions of Mr. Himmer?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Carlson?
make a motion to adopt following resolutions necessary for Project 25-1 as part of the 2025 Street Reconstruction Program. A, adopt resolution number 25-1 sub 3, ordering preparation of feasibility project. And B, adopt resolution number 25-1 sub 6, ordering preparation of plans.
Second.
Motion by Carlson, a second by Geisler. Is there any further discussion on this? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion carries. Item 10 is to consider an introduction of an ordinance to amend 8-200 waste collection and recycling. Mr. Brody.
Mayor and council members, as we discussed at the work session earlier, but for benefit of those now watching, this is kind of a culmination as we had explored last year, organized hauling, and when we ultimately decided to go in a not in that direction, we did want to make some changes to the waste hauling portion of that 8-200. So we've proposed some changes based on input from staff and council. I've highlighted the main ones in the memo. The biggest one is that we have 5 active haulers, and we would limit it to 3. However, those 5 that are currently active, who have a license and provide residential garbage service, will be able to continue to do so as long as they continue to apply and receive a license. We've had some issues with complaints about some of our haulers and things like that, so we've come up with a couple of different ways to try to address that. One is kind of a 5 strikes and you're out process that we've incorporated into this new proposed ordinance, as well as an administrative fine penalty piece as well, where if people or haulers have individual violations, that they could be fined for those. With that, in each process comes an appeal process as well. There's a couple other minor changes that are listed in the ordinance. So tonight we're just here for introduction, and if we have any questions, I'm open for those. Otherwise, we'd ask that you introduce the ordinance, and we would bring it back for adoption at the next meeting.
Very good. And Mr. Brody, the appeal process would ultimately, they could appeal it to the council, correct?
Correct. I believe under the administrative fines, we've kind of gotten a little bit more unique in that initially they'll go to a
Board of Adjustment Appeals?
Hearing officer, which we use like in our dog cases and things like that. Sometimes that becomes more effective, more efficient, often quicker.
Sure.
And so, but generally in the end, they do have an opportunity to come to council.
Okay, very good.
Your Honor.
Councilmember Rayrower, you have questions?
Well, was just going to share that this was a long process, and we have had intense discussions and thorough discussions, both within the council and with the haulers. And coming out of that, we really came to some great protections here and some great changes to our ordinance that will make sure that we don't have more than 5 haulers within the city. And if any of those leave, that we will reduce to 3 haulers over time. If they chose to leave. And that way we reduce, because we had a lot of complaints from city residents about noise and traffic on hauling days, and so this would reduce that. But also we were very divided as a city. There were some who were interested in going to a single waste hauler, but for as many as were interested, there were many opposed to it. So this way we do some of those things that our residents want without moving in that direction. So very happy about that, and just wanted to share.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember
Yeah,
Geisler?
one comment. The key thing that I think that we're proposing here in these ordinance changes are that we want quality services for our residents. And, you know, a key change is the five strikes policy, and that if there are haulers that, you know, miss trash pickups regularly, and we get a lot of complaints from those. So we want our haulers to be responsible and doing the right things and meeting our standards. So this is our way to first make sure that we've got good haulers in our city. And so I'm looking forward to seeing this come back after it's been introduced.
Yep, yeah, and this is a big deal. I mean, if they had five bona fide complaints and lost their license, it would be a big deal, because it would be a lot of customers shifting, so this will be taken very seriously, and we'll do it's
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Carlson, thanks for bailing me out.
You're doing great. I also wanted just to mention too that, you know, most if not all of these conditions were suggested by the haulers themselves.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep, that's a great point. Okay, so,
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Geisler? Mr. Stemwedel?
Mayor, council, if I may, it's also a good opportunity to sort of recognize that some things that council asked staff to move forward on this past spring that are a little more informal. These are some formal changes to ordinance, but last spring, staff worked on an organize your neighborhood collection page and process. There's a toolkit out there. For example, if you lived in a cul-de-sac and you thought, boy, it'd be really nice if all 10 of us were on the same trash hauler, then this would give you an opportunity to give some information to your neighbors about the benefits of that, maybe help you organize that with a hauler and so forth. We also have a new complaint sort of collection portion to the website to help us better identify if there are issues out there. So if folks they see something weird with their hauler, maybe they see them dump the recycling and trash in the same truck. That's definitely something we want to know about, because that's illegal. They're not supposed to do that, and that would be something we could follow up on. And so we've got some new tools in there to help us track that if we are running into patterns with haulers, that we identify them earlier perhaps than we were before, and then it gives us better opportunity to address those issues. So that's it.
Yeah, all great points, thank you. So if this is introduced tonight, the plan is to then take action on it on the 17th?
Correct. Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, all right. Are there any other questions on this? Okay, then we will consider the ordinance to amend 8-200 waste collection and recycling introduced. We will take this back up again at our September 17th meeting, and if you have any concerns or questions, make sure you reach out to staff or to any of us on the council, and we'll try and get answers for you. Okay, so with that introduced, we'll go to item 11. Consider Resolution 24-16, Sub 8, approving plans and specifications and ordering advertisement for bids 2024 lift station rehabilitation project. This sounds like a Mr. Himmer project.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, council. Last year, we did a condition assessment on several of our lift stations around town. What we came up with, and it took us a little longer than anticipated, was there are some needs, but we have a budget, and so we're prioritizing the improvements to stations 5, 6, and 10. They're anything from improved pumps to grease minimization to security and access concerns, communications. So this is a package. We're happy to move forward. Most of the work, depending on the time and materials that it takes to get here, would not take place probably till spring, but we're going to jump on it and try to get done as much as we can. It's included in this year's budget. I'm happy to answer any specific questions you have, but we'd like to get this out for bid and see what kind of pricing we get.
All right. Any questions for Mr. Himmer?
Your Honor.
Councilmember Rayrower?
I make a motion to adopt resolution number 24-16 sub 8, approving plans and specifications and ordering advertisement for bids for City Project 24-16, the 2024 lift station rehabilitation project.
Second?
We have a motion by Rayrower and a second by Carlson. Everybody wants to just keep this stuff moving out of town. So, any discussion on this? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And that motion carries. Item 12 is to consider Resolution 24-86, establishing the 2024 and 2025 Coon Rapids Ice Center rental rates and approve the fee structure. Ms. Ring back there in the corner.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Yes, what we have before you is the proposed fee structure as we kick off the season. Of course, we're excited to welcome everybody back for the season, which runs September through March. And we did market research, so we are proposing a winter prime ice rate of $248 per hour. Our non-prime at $192 per hour, spring, summer, same price. Our outdoor ice at $105. Those fees very much are competitive within the marketplace. They're also about 4% over last year. Inflationary increase, we also believe it's just the right spot to be for our pricing. We did some other price adjustments that were just slight that affected skate sharpening and some room rates. Room rates have not been raised for over 4 years, so we looked at that to increase those slightly. And those are the main areas that had adjustment changes. So if you have any questions, I'm here to help.
All right, very good. Now, so will this have the ice center breaking even now?
Mayor and Council, I'm not going to promise that. It'll help in its own way.
All right.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Geisler.
I'll make a motion to adopt Resolution 24-86, establishing the 2024-2025 ice rental rates for the Coon Rapids Ice Center and approve the 2024-2025 Coon Rapids Ice Center fee structure.
Second?
Motion by Geisler and a second by Carlson. Is there further discussion on this? I haven't gotten a call from Jay, so I'm thinking we must be okay with the blue ox over there. All right, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And that motion carries. Item, what are we at here? 13. I wrote in the wrong one. Consider approval of the 2024 and 2025 Ice Center user contracts. Again, Ms. Ring.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The contracts before you are our standard contracts where we update the terms with the new price fees. We have user groups that abide by these contracts. You already mentioned the Blue Ox junior team hockey. We have Coon Rapids Youth Hockey. We have Anoka Hennepin School District, and we have a couple other contracts that reflect other elements of a training room and storage. So these are our standard contracts that we have had, and again, we are excited to welcome all our groups back for the season.
Very good. Any questions of Ms. Ring?
Your Honor,
Councilmember Rayrauer?
although I'm not super excited about the season of winter coming, I am excited to welcome them back. So with that, I make a motion to approve the proposed 2024-2025 Coon Rapids Ice Center annual user contracts with Anoka Hennepin Independent School District Number 11, Coon Rapids Youth Hockey Association, the Minnesota Blue Ox, Minnesota Wild Sled Program, and Power Edge, and authorize city officials to execute accordingly.
Second?
Motion by Raybauer and a second by Carlson. Is there further discussion on this? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion carries. Item 14 is to consider Resolution 24-79, establishing the preliminary 2025 tax levy. Ms. Hanson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Following a work session that the City Council had here in August to discuss the proposed 2025 budget, staff is recommending the City Council adopt a preliminary 25 tax levy of $38,373,082. This does represent a 7.85% increase over the previous year. Just as a reminder to the council and for the residents to know, so the preliminary levy, once it's set, can be lowered, but it cannot be increased. So we'll ask the council, in addition, to set the truth and taxation hearing for the first meeting in December as well. That's also included in your resolution. There is copies available, electronic copies of the proposed budget, as well as the highlights are available on the city website. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? I encourage you to go to the city's website and look at, so we've got the budget in brief, thank you. Lost that word for a second. I briefly lost that word. Look at the budget in brief and see the work that went into that. And if you're not satisfied with that, then you can, go and look at the whole budget, but hundreds of pages. But we really appreciate all of the effort and the work that staff put into this and the thoughtfulness that went into it. It really expresses the priorities, public safety, roads, streets, water, sewer. I mean, it expresses the priorities, and I thought it was very well done. So,
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Geisler?
I will make a motion to adopt Resolution 24-79, establishing the preliminary 2025 tax levy for the city of Coon Rapids.
Second?
Motion by Geisler and a second by Carlson. Is there further discussion on this?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Griscoviac.
just a comment. We all worked through this. I mean, this process kicks off in the spring. We have work sessions. We express our priorities. And I think the city did a really good job this year of kind of going with our guidance on this. Most of these increases are almost inflationary in nature, but we are taking care of all of the big infrastructure projects that we need, all the core services that we're taking care of. A little bit higher increase over last year than we had looked at, and we can reduce it if we can, but I think the city's done a really good job of spending every penny wisely. As you mentioned, hundreds of pages on that budget, 331 to be exact, and it's all in there. If you wanted to take a look at it in depth, it's all out there on our city website. So,
And when you say city, you mean staff?
staff, it's absolutely not us. It's the staff that does all the work here.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Carlson?
This is the, preliminary, so it's not officially over yet, but staff did do a great job. I mean, this is all about priorities, and I had some questions about some of the spending that was in there, but staff, I thought, did a great job of answering all those questions, so I, certainly felt better about it. These levies, I hate to see these levy increases, but we've got to keep up on this stuff. So our priorities were in the right place. It's all going in the right place. There's no wasteful spending in there. It's a very good budget.
With the pressure on wages and with 80% of our levy being personnel, it's really difficult to get it much lower. Mr. Stemwedel.
Mayor and Council, maybe to expand a little bit on the purpose of setting a preliminary levy for the benefit of the public is really that truth and taxation notices are sent out in November, and it details each of the taxing jurisdictions and their proposed increases and how it's going to impact that particular property for the next year. It also includes information about their truth and taxation hearing date and the location. So if people do have questions and concerns, certainly they can raise those at that public hearing, that first meeting in December. But I would encourage folks, if they have questions about their tax impact, to reach out to us earlier than that, because often what's changing has more to do with their value of their home and how that's being affected than the tax increase itself, which is normal. You see a number like 7.85%, but then you try to do that calculation just purely based on what I paid this year versus what I'm going to pay next year, and it may not make sense because your value changed relative to other properties. You may have done improvements. Your property may have been reviewed recently, and so there's a number of factors that go into it. So I just encourage people, when they get that notice in the mail, to reach out to myself, the finance department, our city assessor, and we can help guide you to get some of those answers.
Right, yeah, and until we know the difference between the commercial industrial base compared to the residential base, you don't know how that's going to be distributed, yeah.
Your Honor?
Okay, Councilmember Rayrauer?
I would just also like to thank staff for doing a fabulous job. Compared to many of our close neighbors, this is much lower than other proposed levies, and I just think part of that is the wise management over time that we have. Thank you, Ms. Hanson, as our finance director, of always thinking not just next year or the year after, but 5 years, 10 years, and 20 years ahead, so that we can try to keep that as steady as possible. So thank you again for the fabulous job.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on this? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And that motion carries. And we are to the open mic public comment, and I'm thinking nobody's here for open mic. Okay, and since Steve's not turning the
Don't
camera on, it's
pan.
because there is nobody here. Okay. Let's see. We did have a couple open mic folks. And I guess all I would do is, should I touch on this, or, I guess there were pretty specific things, and they did get responses from staff. I do have two of them, I guess I didn't get the last one. Well, there was a boulevard tree, and there was, property maintenance issues. They were both responded to. No further action with, either of them at this time, so we'll just leave it at that. Other business to come before council. First day of school for a lot of kids today. We were over at the high school welcoming back the freshmen as they were coming in. I'd like to say there was lots of bright smiling faces, but it was kind of hard to get eye contact out of a lot of them, and Mr. Pena would stay with them until a lot of them would smile though, so. Welcome back. We're looking for a good school year. And Chief, how did anything go on with back to school buses? Any issues with the police or?
No big issues. The police department will be at the high school doing just the same as you did this morning. So we'll be out there tomorrow.
Oh,
greeting the students
tomorrow's
and,
the police?
Yep, trying to get better eye contact maybe than we're.
Hey, you, right here. All right, yeah, then I think fires are on Friday. Yeah,
Thursday or Friday, I don't remember.
yeah. Chief Piper always likes to bring everything out to get their attention, so. All right, other business.
You want to do our calendar of events,
Sure.
fun things coming up, right?
Sure.
So tomorrow, Wednesday, we have our farmer's market. Those are Wednesdays in the afternoon at the ice arena, and that's, I believe, 3 to 6, and it goes through the end of September. And next Monday, there's a community blood drive at Fire Station 3, so check our website, and if you're able to donate and available, please certainly sign up for that. And then next week, Saturday, the 14th, is our movie in the park, Migration. It's at the Coon Rapids Soccer Complex. Oh, and next Tuesday, we have our ribbon cutting at our Fire Station 3. So you could give blood on Monday and then come to the ribbon cutting on Tuesday. So those are a couple of big things coming up in this next week.
All right. And then I guess one of our retired police officers, Pete Bieberg, unfortunately passed away. And I mentioned that because Pete was, I think, the first liaison officer at the school, wasn't he?
Coon Rapids Junior High, Mr. Mayor, 1974.
Okay,
I
there
was
you
a
go.
7th grade student. I stayed out of his office for 3 years.
And then, and Pete was also the mayor of our neighboring city, Anoka, for a number of years, and just an all-around really good guy, and he will be missed, and our condolences to his family and friends.
Mr. Mayor, he's with Coon Rapids for 25 years, and he was the chief deputy in Anoka County for 5 years before he retired. Great person, great person. He was my boss for a while, night shift. Great supervisor, great person.
Pete the Heat.
Pete the Heat, yep.
Yep, and Pete left a legacy on the police department, and that his son is still working for us. So. All right. Anything else to come before council this evening? Mr. Hammer?
Mr. Mayor, I'll be brief. With Labor Day and back to school also is kind of our transitioning into the fall season, which means today they were out winterizing the splash pad. The beach up at Crooked Lake is no longer open for the season, so summer is officially over and fall is here and snow before you know.
And Mr. Hammer, we weren't doing any brush pickup from that storm Thursday, other than just boulevard trees that went down or something? Is that what was kind of going on?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, we're just handling what is on our trails, in our roads, that sort of thing. We didn't have such a widespread thing that we looked at anything that would be more citywide.
Okay. And is there any of our, I know Andover and Oak Grove are both hit harder. Is there anything that they need help with that we would consider helping with? Or, I don't know, maybe that's, I guess I'm not sure.
Yeah, Mayor, Council, I mean, I haven't, there hasn't been an ask made.
Okay.
I know that Andover is similarly handling their brush and debris in terms of they're not doing, city direct pickup, but sort of connecting to county resources and that sort of thing. So, if they are in need of help, certainly we can reach out to them, but I haven't, usually, especially Mr. Dickinson in Andover doesn't hesitate to give me a call if something's up, and I haven't heard from him yet, so.
Yeah, okay, very good. All right, and I offer a personal apology for anybody that was without power because of my ash tree taking out the power lines. I ran extension cords to 2 of the neighbors' refrigerators, but that was all I could do. All right. Any other business to have before council?
Motion to adjourn, Mr. Mayor?
Second.
Motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.